impress you with all these books. I'm not a kind of lecturer, but I'm really interested in sharing with you my passion for dependent origination, because you really, passion, interest, really. Chanda is called Chanda. It's part of one of the 4 factors of road to success in practice, specifically related to meditation, but also you can also apply the same expression for your daily life as well. I never gave a talk on that, although I did plan it at the beginning of the retreat to do that, but for some reason other things kind of slipped through. But what you understand, for one thing, I want to say, when the Buddha talks about Buddhism, his teaching, which is usually referred to Buddha Dhamma Vinaya, Dhamma and the discipline. For you, for example, you're using the 8 precepts right now. So he says simply in the sutta, it's I teach suffering and the end of suffering. So if you're confused about Buddhism, just remember that. I teach suffering and the end of suffering. Now, you're going to understand why this word brings a lot of joy for me. Okay, I'm not attached to suffering particularly, and I'm not at all a suffering type, even though I've been sometimes called a dukkha queen. But it's because I really love the suffering that brings me to the end of suffering. Do you understand? It's the way you approach it, and I suppose it's the way you have experienced it, and how you dealt with it, and the result that you saw in letting go of suffering. So, I am not pretending to do anything much with this. It took 2 consecutive retreats, winter retreats at Ajahn Sundara to get it. So, to really understand deeply what this Paticcasamuppada is about. So, but I thought I'll share with you some of the link which you can remember and use in your daily life. For example, I've already spoken about, you've heard it, the link between Phassa, contact, and then that takes you to Vedana, okay, contact, sense object, contact with sense object, pizza, rotten egg, whatever, and then cakes, and then a nasty mental state, I shouldn't be eating cakes, horrible, I'm a horrible person, I'm still greedy again, it's a nasty thing again, so it comes and goes like that. And now you can have, because you have that contact with mental objects, and that's the emotions and the feelings and the thought and so on. It can brings up, sort of pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, neutral feeling when we're just too sleepy to know what's happening, right? That's what I had a confirmation about this state of mind of neutrality recently. So the Four Noble Truths is all linked with this. In fact, I don't know if I can find it quickly. Because he writes so well, you'll be ashamed to. Let me see. Anyway, basically, this is actually the realization. The dependent origination is a realization of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree. When he realized, where does, how one is born, and he went back to, how one dies. I think it was, and then he went back to the way if one is born, then there's death automatically. It's a whole teaching about that. I don't want to distort it, but to stay with the Paticcasamuppada. So that's the result of his realization is this, from ignorance, then you have pain at the end. You can see that, and he has different kind of stages, obviously, to get to the full kind of birth of pain, and then the whole sort of soul, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. And then, in our chanting, if you remove or you let go, if avidya is not present, and for me, I used it like when I'm mindful, then I can see avidya, but I'm not embedded in avidya. Do you understand? I'm free from avidya when I'm mindful. Okay? Because I can see avidya as an object. I mean, this is my interpretation. It could be personal, I don't know. But that seemed to work. When you're mindful, the mind is not caught up in its objects. So this is quite an incentive for us to, certainly it was an incentive for me, because I saw it quite clearly. Sometimes it's not so clear. So when we go through this, when avidya is not present, then all the other factors are actually abandoned immediately, right? What I mean is that the clinging, the grasping, and the development that comes together with avidya, not knowing, is not present anymore. You can see it, but you're not involved with it. You can see the clinging, okay? You can objectify clinging, the pain of clinging, but you don't have, you're not born into it. So that's one of the things I wanted to show you. These three links, when you are, when ignorance is present, then all this can happen. As soon as you're mindful, you can cut. Again, vidya is present. You understand? When the avidya disappears, then vidya is present. Vidya means knowledge. Yeah? When vidya is present, then the whole conditioning of the mind doesn't take place. You have, in other words, you have a free mind. It's not an empty mind, dull and lifeless and unable to think for itself. It's a free mind, a freedom, being. It's an emptiness that is full of freedom, you could say. It's happy. It's fearless. So, do you have any questions? I mean, it's an awful lot of things. I wish I could just read them to you, because it's so much more fun to read somebody who writes well. Yeah.
And just mindfulness, cut the thread. Is it mindfulness that frees?
Where is mindfulness in all this?
If there's vijja, if there's knowledge, then mindfulness is the precursor for that.
Well, mindfulness is what takes you back to the place of non-attachment. For me, that's how I experience it. As soon as I'm mindful, my vision is right. It's a right view. You understand? Balanced view. It's hard to explain something like that, because it's like you're actually dealing with energy of life. It's not something you can put in a little box with a definition. You have to experience it yourself in a way. When you're mindful, just see how it affects you in your everyday life. Mindfulness is linked with restraint, restraint. It's kind of compared in the suttas, it's compared to a fortress with guards kind of watching who is coming in and out of the mind. Yeah? It's like look, the visitors, it's kind of a notice the visitor, they visit the mind and go. So, and maybe you won't let certain visitors come in. But your wisdom can help you. It depends what you have committed yourself to as well. So if you haven't committed yourself, for example, to ethic, okay, so you will have anybody coming in. But if you are become committed to ethic, then your mindfulness will be vigilant. Because in a way, you could say the Dharma is also, I think, it's like something that supports all the good qualities in ourselves, all the constructive and qualities that support liberation. This is an personal interpretation, And so you can discriminate between something that's going to be supportive to your goal or not. If your goal is liberation of the mind, you begin to see what helps and what doesn't. So
Okay, that's another one. Why do we have a vijja in the first place?
Where is vijja?
Why do we have it?
Well, when this goes, And you get Vijja. Vijja rises when Avijja is gone.
But in the saints, when we're born, our natural state is Avijja.
Is Avijja?
Yeah. Isn't it?
How do you know that?
Well, because babies, children, everyone wants and craves from an early age. It's a natural state.
But Vijja and Avijja in this context means a knowing of the formable truth. Do you understand? Vijja means you have realized the formable truth. You know the formable truth. Avijja, you don't know the formable truth. Some of you are frowning a bit. Like I'm going to get the heavy duty master. The uniqueness of the Buddhist approach is anatta. Okay? The realization of not self. The particular style of reflection in structures like the Four Noble Truths and the Paticcasamuppada changes the way of thinking from self-view of the soul and me as an absolute to anatta and not self. You can read it and take the book from the shelves in the sala. The problem lies in the fact that not self seems like annihilation. And what frightens people about Buddhism is that not self and no soul sound like an absolute position that one has to take as a Buddhist. People who hate God and resent Christianity may become Buddhists because they've got a grudge against God, but that's kind of go back to 30 years ago. I think now things have changed a little bit, with so many kind of interfaith gathering. I think we've understood each other. But I wanted to... Okay, feeling in this other chapter on self. Interesting. Yeah, it is self. Okay. There is natural suffering, going hungry, getting old and getting sick, but that's bearable. That's nothing we can't bear. Sickness, old age and death are things we can always bear with. They're not real suffering. Suffering is greed, hatred, and delusion we produce through the self-view, through taking it all personally. The creation and attachment to wrong views, prejudices, biases, and all the horrors that we are responsible for can all be traced back to avijja, paccaya sankhara, the first level, the beginning of the Paticcasamuppada. You hear what he says? We can't really expect very much improvement if we still insist on being ignorant, caught in the self-view. Even though we might be able to improve conditions slightly by trying to be a good person, as long as there is attachment to self-view, there is delusion. So even the goodness we do comes from delusion. It doesn't lead anyone out of suffering. If we don't have wisdom, often we try to do good, but end up harming and causing all kinds of problems while thinking we can tell others what is good for them. Ring a bell? It's nice, isn't it? It does resonate. What is suffering? Really, what is suffering? Really ask yourself, what is suffering of your life? Yesterday, the cold winds were blowing through me as I was walking out in the field. Is that suffering? I could make it suffering. I hate this cold wind, but actually it was all right. I mean, it was something I could completely bear. If I did not make anything about it in my mind, it was just cold wind, that's all. Yet we can spend time in Amaravati creating attitude about monks, nuns, lay people. Well, we won't go into this. It's all right, you can read it, it's public. The Buddha says the views that everybody is going. He says something which I think I mentioned to you before. The Buddha says the view that everybody is equal is a delusion. I am superior to everyone is a delusion. I'm inferior is a delusion. I am is a delusion if that identity is based on ignorance. But when there is vidya, I am is merely a conventional reality. That's Ajahn Panawadu, the famous English monk who studies with Ajahn Mahabua, who said in one of his talks, people say, oh, in Buddhism, there's no self, there's no self, there's no self. He said, actually, there's plenty of selves. They just come and go. And that's something that I felt. I was so really pleased to hear that, because you do feel you have to be yourself. I have to be a self-nun right now, don't you? Teaching. And then when I go to my sisters, I'm just another sister, different self. When I go to my family, different self. When I talk to my teacher, different, it's just a different I that come up at that time. Yes? So, when there is avidya, it conditions the sankhara, which condition consciousness or vijnana. Consciousness condition mentality and corporality, namarupa, mind and body, which condition the sense bases, which condition contact, which condition feeling. When ignorance is a primary condition, the rest are all affected by it. This is a self-view. So ignorance brings about self-view, right? This self-view starts to become strong when you are age 6 to 7. You go to school and you compete and compare, and this strong sense of self starts being conditioned into your mind, as we know. I remember the first 5 or 6 years of my life being magical, and then after 6 or 7, it started getting increasingly worse. Before that, there wasn't very much a sense of self. Avidya conditioned the sankhara, which conditioned consciousness, which conditioned blah, blah, blah. So he goes on again with anatana. So, which condition contact and then feeling condition desire with an atanha connection. That's the most important one you need to remember when you go back into your life, just to help you to see clearly. If you're caught in attachment to personality view or self, desire, grasping, upadana, and becoming bhava will be operating. You will be lost in that pattern, because when there is ignorance in the moment, it affects everything. It's not easy, isn't it? It affects everything. You've seen it, as soon as you react to something, you notice what happened. It's not so cool, is it? You remember it, you might feel guilty, you might feel happy, it kind of sticks to one, you notice. Little by little, you can feel, you can live your life wholeheartedly, more heartedly than with a lot of delusion, but also you can be, it's like having a huge mind, a huge heart, like everything becomes bigger in a good way when you annihilate delusion, I'm not saying it's finished, far from that, but the little experience I have is, that's why it's so inspiring for me, is because actually you grow in all that is good. Yeah. I remember that when I was, every time I experienced my own suffering, the First Noble Truth, let's say, it was very clear for me. I became much more compassionate to myself. Do you understand? I was more detached, and I could see this being suffering, and I had compassion for this being suffering, instead of torturing it with desire to be something else. Does that make sense? I think some of you maybe don't understand. So seeing your suffering is not going to destroy your joy. It's going to increase your compassion, and which is the most beautiful quality a human being can have, compassion for yourself. And when you have compassion for yourself, then your compassion also manifests in the face of others. That compassion is there. You're in touch with it. So when you've seen your suffering, you have also seen the suffering of others. Then you become a better person, a kinder person. So, what time is it? So from, okay, Vedana, condition, tanha, okay, desire to have, desire not to have, okay, desire for sense pleasure. So we have three kinds of desire. It's a second noble truth in a way, the cause of suffering, desire. And then that condition, upadana, so clinging, grasping. You really got your hand. It's like monkeys in a cage. You got your hand right there. And sort of at first you try, wasn't not caught yet, but now that's it. And then it's become really personal because if you're attached to something, it might be your purse. You kind of somebody wants to take it away or want to steal something from it. If it was just a piece of paper that you are just about to throw in the garbage bin, you would not move at all. You'll just be completely peaceful, thinking maybe you're just equanimous. You've reached equanimity because you don't have any feelings, But let life test you. Do you know what I mean? See if they get your most cherished T-shirt. The one is on it with written really nice things that you don't see anywhere except on your body. T-shirt, and you take that out, that would be very different. Would you be equanimous? Think of something you really like in you. Some people it might be a watch, other people it might be I don't know. I have to be careful what comes up in my mind because it's kind of comical. Anyway, something you really find very important for you. Right? Opinion, that's right. That's very important. Yes, challenging your opinions. Yes, yeah. Material objects are nothing compared to opinions, absolutely. No, it's true, I mean, opinions are much more rooted than in one sort of facts life. It's a fact. I'm not going to let that go. And when I tried to teach my father about opinion and views, because he had very strong opinion and views. So, but he was an intelligent man, so he was not completely, hooked on stupid things. But I said that one day to him. He said, "What do you mean? I have to let go of my opinion? I spent a long time cultivating everything I could to get this opinion. And if somebody doesn't convince me otherwise, I'm not going to let it go, It wasn't a face type, I think. Yes, I'll do it for God. But opinions, that's good to remind me. Yeah, that's the most... you agree with me, Gwen? That's right. That's a really strong opinion, isn't it? My mind, the worst is my mind. I'm always right. Of course, we never say that to anybody. Yet when we speak, everybody can see it except you. You notice that? That happens with many things. That it's right in front of you. Everybody can see it, but you don't see it yet. Yeah. So it might be time nearly to go on to the field. Let me see if I can find something interesting for you. Yeah. Not, hang on, I have got to. Yeah. Gonna go to number 2. So say that again. Yeah.
I wondered if there was a point at which karma was created in the 12 limbs.
What do you mean karma is created?
I'm just wondering
It's on the other side, calm. Oh, karma. Well, every time you act and react, it's a karma, yeah.
So would it happen at the point of mentality, or would it happen lower down?
I said I would not talk of mentality, materiality, and that kind of thing. It's complex, and I wouldn't want to get into this right now, Where is it? As soon as intention is karma, for example. Intention is karma. Chetana is karma. Chetana is intention. And that creates, so you can make good karma or bad karma. If your intention is skillful and good, in harmony with the past, and will bring good result. But it's not as simple as that. You can have a good intention, like my father used to say, hell is paved with good intention, That's a French expression. I don't know if you have this in your Anglican church, but yeah. So that means people can do, good, but they create hell with their goodness, So it's intention plus wisdom, plus awareness, plus mindfulness, plus, right view. There's a lot of things that brings about, positive karma. Anything that helps you. Yeah, and karma means action, Come from the root ka, which is the same as a verb. It's a verb like to do,
I was wondering, because if you watch your mind, then the karma seems to happen as a result of thought. So
well,
action doesn't need to take place, kind of physical action, so it happens.
yeah.
I'm wondering at what point how low down it goes.
In terms of well, if you don't attach your thought, for example, then the karma is not taking place. You don't attach, you just let them come and go. But in the human world, we do have to create. You don't create karma when you are, let's say, not attached. If you're not attached, your karma decreases. We are the heir of our karma, for good or for ill. We're still the heir of our karma, good and evil things. But the Buddha is not really so concerned. I mean, the whole path is about developing good karma rather than destructive karma. But really, the path is about liberation. Seeing into the anicca, the characteristic anicca, dukkha, anatta of everything, mind, body, everything in your mind and body, and then to also see what it means to have the emptiness of your mind, non-attachment. Emptiness is close. So you notice, like if I ask you, like now, you're sitting on your cushion, okay? And I'm going maybe to do the same as I did before. Do you remember the sound, right? The sound meditation. And see what happened to your mind, I think they do this kind of thing in surgery, and I'm convinced they do things in surgery. They put a little music, and some of the music that you have do ding, and that kind of empty the mind, Ding. The kind of soothing music that has also the quality of having this little gong things, and it's well known that they help the mind to kind of let go, So we're just going to do, are you ready? Or would you like to run out and continue? Okay. You can keep your eyes open, it doesn't matter, or closed. Now just feel a level of feeling what's happening when you have. You don't need to talk for now. No talking. Just notice the feeling of emptiness that arises when you're not attached to the sound. You just hear them. But no stories come. Okay? So you may have like a pleasant feeling, an unpleasant feeling, a neutral feeling. And if you're mindful of them, then the stories do not actually manifest. The desire doesn't manifest. It's just Vedana, and you stay with Vedana. So now you can open your eyes. Did you notice something in your mind? Did this sound meditation experience? Did that do something to your mind experience? What did it do? Can you share it with me?
The association,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the noise was, I made an association with the action of the
I think I misunderstand the first word. Social association. Yeah.
With each sound, the rapid sound.
Yeah.
There's an association and a feeling with that went with that.
Yes.
It's very different from bell.
Yes. Anybody wants to share? Same thing.
My mind went a bit, got a bit lost in thoughts. I was thinking about the Bahia part.
The what?
That Bahia.
Oh yes, in the eyes, only the eye, and seeing, only seeing. Well, it's not too bad, can I say. Do you want to tell the story about Bahia? Do you know it? Do you remember it? Oh, you can tell. I know the story, but you can tell the story. Yeah. Well, I think it was a monk or sadhu who came to see the Buddha, and I can't remember what he asked him, but anyway, the Buddha said to him, Bahia, you know it? Well, anyway, we can just kind of shorten it. Bahia, in the scene, it's a famous sutta. In the scene, there is only the scene. In the herd, there is only the herd. In a thought, there is only the thought. In a taster, there's only the senses are just senses. They don't. There is only that, but we can proliferate around that. That's the Buddha say that. Of course, we have lifetime upon lifetime of proliferation. It's not going to stop day one. So that's what he said to Bahia. Anybody know the background? You sit there. You can be library. Bahia. What was the context of Bahia Sutta? Did he go to see the Buddha? And then he got killed by a cow. Bahia actually had, I think, attained arahantship. Arahantship doesn't cover everything. Remember, you might not get what you want. There's two monks in the suttas with rich arahantship. I think Bahia too, or maybe enlightenment to a degree, and they both got killed with by a cow as they left the Buddha. So don't expect anything from the Dhamma. Yeah, or Amaravati. Yeah. So what was the context of Bahia? Do you remember?
He came to see the Buddha, and he demanded a teaching while he was on Pindapat, while he was on Amra. But Buddha said, no, this is not the time. But he pleaded 3 times. I might not be, this is the time. Then Buddha responded. In just saying, is just saying, the hearing is just hearing, the knowing is just knowing, the cognizing is just the cognizing. And then he attained arahantship, and he wanted to become a monk, so Buddha sent him away to get an bowl and robes, and on the way he got killed.
Right. We'd already attained arahantship, so it was fine. It was covered. He didn't have any problem anymore. That's right. So it in the scene, only the scene, and the cognize, only the cognize.
In the scene, there's only the scene. Only the hearing, there's just the hearing. Only the knowing, just the knowing, and cognizing, just the cognizing.
That's right. Yeah. So that's important, isn't it, to remember that. Basically, it's just saying, it's as simple as that. You have the object of hearing, and that's it. That's all there is. But the mind has a lot of stories about these things, which are very happy and very pleasant, and others not so happy and pleasant. But the senses themselves are not at all a problem. The senses themselves are not the culprit of our misery. What is a culprit of our misery is dukkha. The actual dukkha of not getting what you want, when the sound is not what you like, or getting what you don't want. That the description of the First Noble Truth we did in the chanting before. So that's not the senses that are the problem. Is the attachment to the senses.
Ajahn, the sound doesn't come from the object. It's we create inside. So that's why when we see something and that we blame that one outside.
That's right.
That's the dukkha.
That's the dukkha, absolutely. Yeah, it's mind.
It's a sense.
Mind is foreign. That's right. The mind connected with the sense door.
Yeah, that sound we didn't hear. We heard here.
Right. That's right.
Ajahn Sundara told me something very useful when I had very noisy neighbours, and he said to me, "You are annoying." He said, "You are annoying the noise." I didn't get it at first.
You are what?
You are annoying the noise. And once I got it took a lot of the suffering out of noises I didn't like.
Well, it's a bit like Ajahn Shah when the monks were living in Hampstead on Haverstock Hill near Hampstead in London. And there was a pub just across the road, more or less, and they were complaining about the pub at night and so on. And Ajahn Shah said, "Stop disturbing the noise across the road, please." That's kind of the wisdom master, that cuts through all proliferation. And if you love him, you say, "Yes, sir." Yes, yes, Lumpo. If you don't love him, you just think he's completely idiotic. Them, no problem, not me. Okay. Any more questions? You can always come to me at the end of the retreat, and I can give you some references, which I think will be useful, because sometimes we don't study Buddhism properly, There's so many things that are interesting to hear from the Buddha's own mouth, kind of thing, rather than interpretation from this Vipassana teacher and that Vipassana teacher, which are great. I mean, so many books are published nowadays, but I think it's really good not even go to the commentary, but go to the Bhikkhu Bodhi translation of all the Nikaya in English, It's a shame. I mean, only sort of Anglophone people speaking English, a country where English is spoken, they can understand, because not many translation in France, very little, I don't know, in Spain, if there are lots of translation of the Nikaya. No, and they are absolutely a jewel, a treasure of wisdom, truly. Amazing, amazing teaching. So I hope we need more translators. Well, I'm busy, I translate. I already translate things, from Ajahn Sumedho, from Ajahn Amaravati. But small things, when I have time, when something interests me really, I feel that would be really useful for people, then I translate it. But I'm still a bit Frangly, like half French. It's not like pure good French. That reads well. But I have friends in Paris, fortunately, who can help me now. But it's just for short things, like maybe 30 pages, 40 pages. But when it comes to a book or booklet, that takes longer. So people don't have much time. I'm looking for the perfect translator, French, English, French, that I still got a good brain and still is not working too much, and what else? It loves the Dhamma, and particularly Chensomedo, and and is very happy to translate and have all the time of the world to do that. I've got this image in me, but do you know, it's interesting. Don't disregard these things, because if you think positively like that, you don't have to expect something, but life helps you. It's like life come to your rescue. I even found some gentleman in England from the Lotus Volunteer, which is a group of volunteers associated with Amaravati, and he was correcting, editing something already translated, and I said, gosh, he must be French, it's so good. He's English, and he's quite happy to translate, so that's another translator. Yeah. Pardon me? Eh? It does. It's not too bad. No, Google does a decent translation, but of course you have to work. Every sentence have to be slightly adjusted, But it actually is much better than it was many years ago. Yeah, I was surprised. But I have several several translation program from internet, that are very useful. So some of them that give you many different meanings of the same word in different contexts. It still has to be reviewed by some good, French-speaking, writing people. So, well, as I said, don't be too disappointed. I'm not a lecturer, and I haven't planned this very much, So it's just very brief and superficial. But I think if you get the link, because you're meditators, you can understand the link. It's very simple. And if you have other questions, it's a whole, you can spend a whole week just studying the different kind of points on, the 12 link of this dependent origination. And, but you already know many, like craving, clinging, feeling, contact, you know that, don't you? These are the most important part for us in our meditation. You don't need to have the whole baggage or intellectual baggage about it, You can just know what you know already. 6 sense base and so on, and Namarupa is mind and body. So, and when you say consciousness here, it's actually sense consciousness, right? 6 sense consciousness. So please, you can go out and do meditation until about 11. Can you ring the bell at about 10 to 11? Yeah, that will be about 40 minutes meditation, walking. Who wants to do 1 hour walking meditation? Including toilets and, and 1, 2. So you can just stay until the meal, and it'll be a long time. It'll be an hour and a half. No, but you can do it until 11 or, and then come back here. Continue. Don't start thinking that you're already out of the retreat, okay? And planning all the things you're going to do afterwards. Hemel Hempstead is going to be booming with frustrated meditators. That's going to go to Debenham and, Starbucks. And don't worry, I know exactly, on the M25 really quick to get something in London that you like, So I'm not reading anybody's mind, but I'm reading my own mind, when I was in your position. And I used to do retreat in Christian monastery. I remember the first thing I looked like almost saintly. I could really impress people in monastery. And then as soon as I arrived at the train station, I would be gobbling Mars bars and chocolate and all, absolutely disgusting sights. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't believe anything because I don't believe myself. But for the time being, just continue to do your saintly path, the beautiful path of Buddhism. And I have to say, maybe Buddhism is integrated. To me, it's more, I can integrate it